Today, we're going to dive into this incredible story of how a single river, flowing right through one of the most hostile environments on Earth, gave birth to one of the greatest civilizations in all of human history. This is the story of the Nile. So let's just start with the central puzzle. I want you to imagine you're standing in a vast, dry desert. There's almost no rain, and sand just stretches for hundreds of miles in every direction. How, in a place like this, do you not just survive, but actually build a civilization that lasts for thousands of years? Well, the answer literally flows right through the sand. You see, the hero of this story isn't some king or a conqueror. It's the Nile River itself. It was the solution to what really seemed like an impossible problem. To really get why the Nile was so important, we first have to picture ancient Egypt without it. I mean, most of the region was just abandoned. It was this sun-scorched landscape where little to no rain ever fell, making life, and especially farming, completely unworkable. And this is the crucial point. It wasn't just about having water to drink. Without the unique, annual flooding of the Nile, any kind of organized agriculture would have been impossible. The entire foundation of their society depended on this yearly miracle. So, what made the Nile so special? It wasn't just any river. It was a river with a secret weapon, a predictable, life-giving power that set it apart from pretty much any other. First off, let's just think about the sheer scale of this thing. The Nile is the world's longest river. It carves a path over 4,000 miles from the heart of Africa all the way to the Mediterranean Sea. This one, single, immense waterway was the absolute lifeblood of ancient Egypt. And the key was its predictability. See, unlike the chaotic, destructive floods they had in Mesopotamia, the Nile's flood was this gentle, reliable gift. It arrived like clockwork, every single year, which allowed the Egyptians to plan their planting seasons with total confidence. You can build a calendar, a whole society, a civilization on that kind of certainty. And that flood brought the most important gift of all, silt. As the waters receded, they left behind this thick layer of rich, dark, unbelievably fertile soil. This silt, this was the engine of Egypt's prosperity. It was basically nature's perfect fertilizer, delivered completely free of charge every single year. The ancient Egyptians, they had a very clear way of seeing their world, and the names they had for it perfectly illustrate the power of the Nile. They saw their world as two totally distinct places. You had the Black Land, that's the narrow, dark, fertile strip right along the river where all life happened. And then, just beyond it, was the Red Country, the vast, barren desert. So you have life and death, prosperity and nothingness separated by just a few steps. It's a really stunning, sharp contrast. But you know, that Red Country also offered a gift: protection. Egypt was basically a natural fortress. Any invading armies would have to cross these huge, hostile deserts to the east and west. The Mediterranean Sea protected the north, and to the south, the Nile itself had defenses, these impassable rapids called cataracts that made sailing upstream for invaders pretty much impossible. So with a surplus of food and security from invasion, the people of the Nile Valley had a really rare gift in the ancient world: stability. And with that stability, communities could grow larger, richer, and a lot more complex. Now this process, it unfolded over thousands of years. Hunter-gatherers were drawn to the valley 12,000 years ago. By 4500 BC, you had permanent farming villages dotting the riverbanks. And then came a crucial step. By 3200 BC, these villages had grouped together into two powerful, distinct kingdoms. And these two kingdoms, they had their own separate identities. In the south, which is upriver, you had Upper Egypt, and its king wore this cone-shaped white crown. To the north, where the Nile fans out into its delta, was Lower Egypt, ruled by a king in a red crown. For centuries, these were known as the two lands of Egypt: two kings, two crowns. So, for centuries, they existed as the two lands. But the next chapter in the story is all about how one really ambitious king would forge these two kingdoms into a single, unified nation. Then, around 3100 BC, a king from Upper Egypt, we know him today as Menes, decided that, you know what, two lands were not better than one. He launched a campaign to bring all of Egypt under his rule. His strategy was this brilliant mix of force and smart diplomacy. First, conquest. His armies invaded and took control of Lower Egypt. Then, politics. To solidify his rule, he married a princess from the north. And finally, symbolism. In a truly masterful move, he fused the two crowns into one. And the result was the double crown. Now, this wasn't just a hat. It was a powerful piece of political propaganda. It was a clear, visual statement that every single Egyptian would understand. The two lands were now one, under a single ruler. And this symbol of unity would be worn by Egypt's pharaohs for millennia. Menes is considered the very first ruler to hold the title we all know, pharaoh. And here's a fascinating little detail about that word. It doesn't mean great king or tough man. It literally means great house, referring to the royal palace. So with this act of unification, Menes didn't just become a king, he founded Egypt's very first dynasty. So ultimately, from the very first farm to a unified kingdom, every single step of Egypt's journey was made possible by the river. It's really no wonder that centuries later, the Greek historian Herodotus perfectly captured this truth when he called Egypt the gift of the Nile. So the Nile provided the foundation, the food, the security, the very land they lived on. It gave birth to a civilization. But that leaves us with an even bigger question, right? How do you take that incredible gift and build something so powerful, so complex, and so stable that it lasts for 3,000 years? Well, that's a story for another time.